And so that's how you don't do it. Let's try again. Hey, this is Flug, and there's been some discussion going on the Flightgear forums about JSBSim and YASIM, the different flight dynamics models in Flightgear, and which is better, and what the advantages and disadvantages of the different ones are. And so it inspired me to go off and do a little bit of work on this Sopwith Camel that I've been developing under JSBSim. Because one of the criticisms of JSBSim is it doesn't handle ground effects as well. For example, landing on water. Normally landing on water, you just land exactly like you do on the ground, and so it looks kind of fake with the airplane just sitting on top of the water there. So I went in and adjusted the contact points and some of the different formulas and a little bit of nasal scripting, and so now the aircraft sort of floats more on the water. Um, it's not always totally realistic, as you can see there, but like here, uh, the wheels sink under the water, the way you'd expect them to do. And I have to say, it's actually kind of a lot of work to do this under JSBSim, but it has enough flexibility you can make it do it. And I was sort of convinced uh, that it's kind of worthwhile to do. Here we're just seeing, like, imagine a giant is throwing your plane around on the water just to see what it looks like when it crashes into the water different ways. But the thing this does for this is it does give you some chance to practice your kind of ditch landings and see you can, if you come in too fast or too steep, the water catches your wheels and you flip. So you have to keep just the right speed, just the right angle, and it's actually kind of fun and kind of difficult to do. So once I got that working, both with the floating at the right level and those kind of wave splash effects, I thought, well, what about land? And the Camel is a tail dragger, and so it's actually kind of interesting to be able to have this a little bit of dust kicked up by the tail when it's contacting the ground, which of course is what happens in real life. And it's helpful, especially since we don't have shadows, right now in flight gear. It gives you some sense of when your aircraft is touching the ground and how it's contacting the ground. The other criticism that people have made of JSBSim is it doesn't uh, handle all the ground reactions as well. Like you hit bumpy ground or you hit ground with a higher rolling resistance, and um, JSBSim out of the box doesn't do anything about it. You go over that just the same as you would a runway. Whereas YASIM out of the box, you have the bumps, you have the greater friction, but just a little bit of nasal scripting and so on. And now that's what I'm driving over ground that has different bumpiness. You can see the wheels bumping, has different friction, and so it's harder to get rolling and so on. And then I was trying, it's not just the tail that gives the dust or the kicks up dust, but like if you should drag a wingtip or something as you're taking off, you get the dust or whenever you crash. So here again, I'm kind of throwing around the airplane like a giant would, just to kind of show uh, what happens when it hits the ground in different ways. And I have to say, I was kind of convinced by this too. I mean, if you just have a fake looking model and it smacks into the ground and sort of just boings off, it really isn't as realistic. And so this isn't full realism by any means, but at least you get some sense of you're actually interacting with real things in this real world, and there's some consequences if you should scrape a wingtip or crash into the ground or whatever. Yeah, and here I was trying to show what would happen, what it would look like if you touch a wingtip, like as you're taking off. Here again, you can see the bumping over the ground, and it's got a higher friction, and the JSBSim picks this up from the scenery files in Flightgear that have all that information, what kind of ground it is and how much friction there's. There you saw a little bit of a wingtip dusting up the ground there. Theoretically, you could go in and like maybe make different color or different amount of dust or smoke. If you're in a swamp, you'd have something different, or if you're on grass. I haven't gone to that level of detail, but it would certainly be possible for someone who is that ambitious. And now here again you can see it's going over the bumpy ground, so it's kind of bumping along. The bumpiness is in the Flightgear scenery files. And as the grand finale here, I'm going to show what happens if you were to drive your camel, down the beach and right into the water. So you can see here it's the gear is on the ground. It goes in the water. Yeah. And that is, that's just about what would happen if you drove your camel, into the water. So there we go.